it's Jen Taub. Welcome back to Booked Up, a podcast that features you, me, and our favorite authors. We release a new episode every Sunday morning. Today, my guest is American hero Aquillino Gonell, author of the new book, American Shield, the immigrant sergeant who defended democracy. You know Sergeant Gonell is one of the brave members of the Capitol Police who defended our country and our Constitution when insurrectionist mobs attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. You saw him testify in July of 2021 at a televised congressional hearing. With him at the witness table was his friend and fellow Capitol Police Sergeant Harry Dunn, and also with him were Washington Metropolitan Police Department officers Michael Fanone and Daniel Hodges. As I wrote in the Washington Monthly at the time, these four heroes and their colleagues defended the U.S. Capitol from an angry mob hell-bent on murdering Vice President Pence and Speaker Nancy Pelosi and stopping the House and Senate from officially counting electoral votes to declare Joe Biden and Kamala Harris the winners of the November presidential election. Gonell was born in the Dominican Republic, and he came to the United States in 1992. The first family member to attend college, he became a U.S. citizen just before his 21st birthday. He praised this country for giving him the opportunity to become whatever I wanted. In his testimony before Congress, Aquillino Gonell said he was more fearful on January 6th than when he was deployed in Iraq. In Iraq, he was scared to go in convoys or supply missions to Iraqis, but he knew the risks. At the Capitol, he didn't. How could he? As he said then, I did not recognize my fellow citizens. He heard threats against Pelosi and Pence and realized his own life was at risk. The rioters called him a traitor, and they shouted that he should be executed. These were not peaceful protesters. As he said in his testimony, the mob brought weapons to try to accomplish their insurrectionist agenda. This included hammers, rebar, knives, batons, bear spray, and pepper spray. Some of the mob wore tactical gear. Some seized officers' batons and shields. One rioter even attacked an officer with an American flag. These rioters pulled Aquillino Gonell by his leg, shield, and gear. At that point, his survivor's instincts kicked in. He hit a rioter who was grabbing him. Then he stood and fended off the new attackers as they kept rotating and attacking him over and over again. He described it at the time like a medieval battle, fighting hand to hand. The rioters were shouting, "Trump sent us. Pick the right side. We want Trump." Aquillino Gonell heard an officer near him, who he later learned was Hodges, scream in pain. He thought to himself, this is how I am going to die. But thankfully, he didn't. He survived. But he has serious injuries. Both of his hands, his left shoulder, and his right foot were injured. He needed surgery on his foot and also had to have surgery on his shoulder. He's gone through rehab and is still suffering from the PTSD from his time in Iraq as well as at the U.S. Capitol. As he said in his testimony, we don't want medals. We want justice and accountability. I'm honored to have him as my guest today to talk about his new book, American Shield, how his recovery is progressing, and what is to come. Okay, let's dive in. Hey there, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself? Thanks. I don't know. Is my lighting good, or do you need more light?
Oh no, we're just capturing the audio, so no worries about lights.
Got it.
But I may comment on what's there. So I'm noticing you have got a fantastic setup behind you, and I'm wearing glasses, so I can see that to my left, but over your right shoulder, there is a photograph, and you are standing with someone. And I'm guessing it's someone important, you, of course. But who are you in that photograph with?
That is New York State Senator Louis Sepulveda.
Amazing. And what was that encounter? How did you two meet?
He's a friend of mine. He invited me to, they gave me a proclamation since I live in New York for 15 years. So he took it upon himself to award me with a proclamation from the Senate and also another one from the Assembly in the state of New York.
That's so nice. And that must have been, was that pretty recently, like last year? Or?
It was last year, I think around December last year, but it was good. I know I didn't do any of those things that I did on January 6th and before for seeking any medals or award or accolades, but they felt compelled to award me something that I well received it, given the fact that I went to Iraq back in 2004, and also I defended the Capitol on January 6th. So I'm very grateful that they awarded me that. But
I've come to understand. And because on this show I call people by their first name, but I feel uncomfortable not calling you Sergeant because I have so much great respect for you and for the service you have performed for our country. But can I call you Aquillino? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and you can call me Jen. So I've come to understand, Aquillino, that sometimes when people give something, even if we don't feel comfortable receiving, an honor because we were just doing what we were doing, the people who give it's more for them. In other words, they want to show how grateful they are to you. And I want to express that as well. For your 17 years in the U.S. Capitol Police, including what you did for the country on January 6th, as well as the more than a year and a half that you spent in Iraq. That, to me, service is the ultimate sacrifice because of what the risk you're taking, what you have to experience. And, with none of us, I think all of us want peace. All of us want harmony in the world, but that's not what human nature is. And a call to service is I believe, to help protect ideally our way of life, even if what goes on here is complex, right? I mean, America has its own complexities and our own internal struggles, but to defend the country, I'm so grateful that you did that.
Well, thanks for saying those things. A lot of times we hear the louder voices and some of those things, especially because they don't agree with what we did. That is what we hear the most,
especially when a war is unpopular, right? I mean, I want to, and I know that, it reminds me a bit, just talking with you, it's reminding me that when I was a baby, my father had, he just gotten out of medical school, and he was going to medical school in, I think, Missouri. And then he got a residency in Arizona, which is where I was born. But I was born in 1966. And then he signed up, he enlisted, he became an officer during the Vietnam War. And that's why we moved to California. Okay. And he was stationed in the Navy at Long Beach as a doctor. And it wasn't that he necessarily agreed with what the war was. It was that he felt like, well, he might be, instead of being drafted, he wanted to sign up as an officer. And also he didn't want to be one of those people who, because he had, wealth, he could, not that he was wealthy, but you know what I mean? He was a doctor, that he could have skipped out.
Yeah, the means to, I get it,
And so, but what's happened to him, and he did not love it. And we ended up moving when he was done with his time in the Navy. He moved our family back to the Detroit area in Michigan, which is where I grew up. But he always talks about how, like, you wear your uniform even when you're off the base and stuff like that. And people would like shout at him and spit at him. And, and he just felt like, hey, he was doing what he needed to do. And I think that, he used to be, it's interesting. I think he used to be a Democrat. And I think it was after the Vietnam War that he became more conservative himself. I have always been myself a Democrat despite my parents' political choices. But I think that was a fault line, I think, for him, where he felt like, why are you spitting at me? I'm doing what I needed to do. And Anyhow, I just had this
No,
flashback to
no,
that.
I get it. I mean, it's hard when other people judge you or demonize you for just doing your job. I mean, I think in my case, as I speak about it in American Shield, uh, my book, and I don't think I would have done anything different if it was Antifa or the Hillary Clinton supporters on January 6th, and that's why a lot of people don't seem to understand. Like, our job as a police officer at the Capitol is to protect and serve and give a safe environment to all the elected officials, regardless of what their parties are. And if you are coming into the building, you need to go through security screening. Um, you don't have to break in the windows and the doors or menace or threaten the life of not only the elected officials but their staff and the police officers. And a lot of people conflate that. Well, where were you on 2020 when the riots were going on across the country? Well, there were no riot here at the Capitol.
That wasn't your job. Like what? You're supposed to leave work
So
and fly across the country?
just because I'm a police officer doesn't mean I'm in charge of the whole nation, or that's not my jurisdiction. So, uh, you know, well, how come you didn't speak about that? Well, I don't think I had the platform to do so. Know that I did have my opinions about it, but I kept it to myself. If it wasn't not involving me or my colleagues that I was supposed to supervise, um, it didn't matter to me. That's just like you had your own choices to um, an opinion about abortions or guns. Those are your choices. You cannot be um, pro. It's my choice, my body, my choice, only for vaccinations, but then for my body, my choice for abortion, it's not doesn't include you. The state had to tell you what to do. So people need to understand that everybody has their own opinion. I know what I did on January 6th was my job. I kept my oath. Had it been another group, I would have done the same thing. And
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I mean, people, I'm a strong proponent of freedom of thought, freedom to read what you want to read, freedom to make choices about your body. But there's that expression, your freedom ends where my nose begins. And, if someone's coming at you and knocking down barriers and raising, flags menacingly and spraying bear spray, it's not your job to take a moment and say, hey, could you stop for a second? And what is your political leaning?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not your job.
And that's the messed up thing, because I know when I was in the tunnel, there were people saying that when the whole country hated you, when the whole world hated you in 2020 in the summer, we had your back. And therefore, you should let us go in, as if that was transactional. Their support was transactional.
Oh, saying because you're talking about sort of the general, like the sort of defund the police movement. Is that what you're talking about? And like,
I think they were referencing when the whole world hated you, we supported you, we had your back.
Oh, well, yeah.
We had your back. That's what one individual said to me, and the people around there, they also expressed that. And like, yes, we had your back in 2016 when the whole Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they wanted to kill you, they wanted to defund you, the police. And we were there thanking you for your service. But what they don't get is we don't, at least in my part, I didn't take that as a transaction. Your support doesn't mean anything to me. Right. Just like when they say we support law and order, but yet the same people who said that to me, they beat me up with the American flag attached to a pole. And then they tell me,
I'm so sorry.
I'm doing this for you. Wait, let me get it straight. You think I want you to assault me because you think I want that to happen to me? For what? What's the purpose? What would I gain out of that? And that's what they seems to conflate, because to me, backing and supporting the law enforcement officers means you support them no matter what. And also, Well, unless it's something egregious,
Right. Unless they're violating the
criminal,
law themselves,
something
right?
criminal, something
Right.
a behavior that needs to be disciplined. But in terms of you back the rule of law or law and order, that those type of things, those are principles to me means a lot. And
You know,
the
you're
way that
using
some Republicans say, we are the party of responsibility, we are the party of law and order. How? Explain to me how, because you didn't even want to have an investigation. And just like about a week and a half ago, Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, said,
yeah.
um, "We are the party of law and order, the rule of law." And then in the same sentence, he goes, "I want transparency, but let us blur out the faces of the people who assaulted my colleagues and myself, the same people who were hunting them down, him and his colleagues, room by room, to kill them." But that's transparency to him. That's the party of the rule of law and personal responsibility.
It bothers me so much. And it's, you're using logic and you're using
I'm afraid I am. I'm sorry.
yeah, exactly.
Shockingly.
I accuse you of using logic, and I accuse you of being consistent and applying standards fairly. And I think what bothers me the most when you mention someone like the new Speaker of the House is he knows better, right? He knows better. And the people who were there that day were just out of control and filled with, all kinds of rage and all kinds of, it was all hyped up, the madness of a crowd. I mean, the idea that he wants to blur out their faces so those have not been held accountable can escape and therefore get away with it. It just it makes no sense to me. But again, you and I like to use logic. Um, I want to ask you, since you're and I know you wrote a whole book about it, and you're out on a book tour talking about it, but each time when you speak about what happened on January 6th and you're reliving that in your mind, how long does it take you to recover from that? Because I know you're here to talk about it, but I also feel uncomfortable asking you direct questions about it because I know then those images are in your head again.
Um, at first, it was hard for me. I mean, it's the immediate aftermath of January 6th. I was a train wreck. Yes, I continued to go to work, but I was silent. I isolated myself. I didn't talk to my wife and my kids and my family a lot, other than, yes, I'm good. Other thoughts about harming myself or um, being betrayed by the political people that I protected, then being demonized also by the same people that, again, that claim to be on the side of the rule of law, and they calling me all kinds of names because I decided to come forward. Policing is usually type A personality for the people who does that, and then there is also a police culture where you keep things internal. You don't go outside the
You said a
department.
code, kind of a code.
Yeah, like kind of like culture. You have
Culture. Yeah,
yeah,
got you.
culture. Like you had to, if something happened in the department, we try to hash it off, and the outside doesn't need to know, the public doesn't need to, unless it's something major. And once you step out of that lane, then you're considered an outcast and become ostracized.
So you became some of the isolation was your own sort of turning in inside and isolating yourself, but you also were isolated because you're kind of an outsider, exiled because
in a way,
of that.
and for me that was hard dealing with that. Looking back, uh, I know my last day working was January 21st, the day after the inauguration. I think it was 21st. And I wanted to be at work. I wanted to be at work to continue serving in my role. There were a lot of threats that I thought it was imperative for me to be there to help mitigate those threats. But my doctor removed me for medical reasons, and I had surgery probably like a month later after that. Um, and so it took me months for me to get back to. But even though when I was not at work, I was obsessing over some of the things that happened to me, trying to figure out who did what to me, trying to assess the investigations, um, writing reports. In a way, I wanted to be at work, even for the after action reports that we had to do. And it bothers me that I wasn't there. But looking back, I think it probably one of the best thing that happened to me, because how would I continue to um, give my service to the same people who doesn't have my back? You know what I mean? So
Right.
that
Right.
trust and confidence in my skills, and the trust had been breached by the same people who I protected, the same people who were running for their lives
Right.
when I was fighting for trying to protect them, and they turn around and say, you know what, these people were peaceful. These people were peaceful protesters. These people are patriots. These people are tourists. These people are hostages, like the former president said a couple of weeks ago. So if those people are those things, and I'm the one that had the authority, one of the people who had the authority to be there, what does that make me? The bad guy of the story. So it created not only was I dealing with the physical injuries, but then I had the mental injuries, and then by them saying that, the same elected official, then that created a moral injury, because
Yes.
you don't
Good point.
you cannot tell me that I'll be in the right set of mind if there's something else were to happen where I needed to worry not only about the threats in front of me, but with the member spousing all those things, all those lies right behind me, will they help me secure the room or the Capitol if something else were to happen?
Wow.
Or
Wow.
or
Right.
or will they hold me down, trying to restrain me from preventing me from doing my job? Because they are sympathetic to those people, what they do.
I had never thought about that future part of it. I was just thinking, putting myself in your shoes, thinking that sense of betrayal would make me angry all the time. And that would just be untenable. I don't know how I could go to work day after day feeling betrayed by the people I'm protecting. Even thinking about it. But now when you mention them possibly interfering in your job, then you can't even do your job
Yeah,
with them.
I mean, I was afraid. I mean, there were times that I sat in my car after getting to my parking lot at work, where I had to sit down for 15, 20 minutes deciding whether to go inside or not. Once I
Mm.
was able to, because what I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? All these people, they don't care about me. They don't care about my colleagues. All they
So
care, all they care is about their position, and they're willing
you're
to lie. They don't care about who lives they ruin or who gets hurt.
What's amazing to me, just going back to the evening of January 6th, when you went home, you were injured physically, not just emotionally. You were seriously injured, and you didn't go to the hospital immediately. You didn't even go in the morning. You went to work, and you waited 2 days to even get medical treatment. When you look back on that, can you explain it to me?
Um, Look, I'm gonna tell you, just like I told my wife last year, and because she wanted an answer, the reason why I went, she was pissed at me for not heeding her concerns, and I told her, look, there are a numerous amount of threats happening as we speak. There were people or bulletins that came in that they were going to blow up the bridges, that they were going
Oh
to
my God.
hurt the members, that they were going to come back with more firepower and actually with the intent to use it. Those are reports, real reports. And I felt that as a sergeant, just like I was trained in the military, that I needed to take care of my group, my team, my subordinates. And the best way I thought about it at that time was I need to be at work to help them implement the security as a supervisor. I cannot take myself out. And that was my logic back then. I used to do the same thing like I did in the military, where I'll come in early and leave late after everybody. If there was some food or water needed, I'll let them have it, and then I'll figure out what to do with myself later on. That's how I was trained. That's how I took things, and I tried to do the same thing as a police officer, as I say in my book, American Shield. Even with breaks, I used to be the last one taking the breaks. Sometimes I didn't even get breaks. But when I actually told my wife last year the reason, I told her, remember, I don't know how the conversation came about again, but I asked her, do you remember, did I ever tell you why I left and you wanted me to go to the hospital? And she said, no, but I'm still pissed at you. You didn't listen to me, and all I was trying to do was try and take care of you. And I'm like, yes, I know. So do I. I was trying to take care of you and your future. I didn't care about my own. I lived a lot of things. I survived a lot of things. And we didn't know whether those people were coming back, arms or not. But there were reports, there were threats. And by me showing up to work, I was trying to secure your future and my son's future and the country as well. If anything, that I was willing to lay down my life again. This is what I did. And she was upset, and she like, I still mad at you because when I tried to help you, when I tried to tell you this thing, you said, and I didn't remember this part. And she reminded me, like, you told me this is how you met me. Deal with it. Yeah, I don't remember saying that to her.
Oh, that was probably protection. You're just pushing her away from, what she was, pushing her away. Because when I think you had that sort of mindset of the battle, because you didn't know if you were coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that's like.
And to me, that was hard to hear that, because I didn't remember saying those things to her.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it any less true. I did what I did. I wanted to protect her, protect my son's future, and even if that meant risking my life again. And I think I did the same thing for the whole country on January 6th, because despite my injuries, I could barely walk. My left arm was still injured. I couldn't do much with it, I think I did the right thing.
I think you did too. You needed to do that because you didn't know what was going to happen next, and you went in there for your friends, for your team.
Yeah. And the other thing is to close on that note, put a button on that part of the story. Just last week, my wife was able to become a naturalized citizen. She took the oath.
Congratulations! That's amazing.
Thank you. And I don't think, had it not been because my action on January 6th, I don't even think that she would have been able to, because all those people assaulted the Capitol with a different aim. And had it not been because what we did, they thought it would have been a different outcome. And many of them, they do say that in court now. So did I do the right thing? I hope so. I hope it was not in vain. But I think one thing for sure, I don't think she would have been able to to get her citizenship, and not because it was given to her. As a result of what I did, she had to earn it as well. She had to go through the same process like everybody else. But I think the system of governance that we had was being threatened. And it would have been a different outcome had it not been because the actions that we do take on January 6th.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a peaceful transition of power. And even today, as we're speaking, and we're just about at the, just about at that second anniversary, it's not shocking to me, I guess. I think it's deeply, deeply disappointing to me that Donald Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party. I really thought they would figure out a way to stand up to this authoritarian, racist, know nothing, selfish, terrible person. I guess you know how I feel about him.
Yes, a little. I'm getting the feeling.
Yeah. And here we are. He's been, what is it? 4 times quadruply indicted, twice impeached. I, never seen anything like it in my life. But before I get to that, I want to say, your courage on January 6th through the 21st, staying there with this job until your doctor said no more, is matched by your willingness to testify before, on television where millions of people were watching. I was watching and live tweeting, watching you testify and bare your soul before that congressional committee. And I want to thank you for that, because that created a record. You put a human face on what at that time, I mean, I know we saw the footage was later kind of put together, but we just from the outside at that point only knew is madness and chaos. And to see you and, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, Fanone and Dunn, and then there was a fourth guy.
Hodges.
Yeah. To see you all being able to do that, I want to thank you, because that's I bet because I know it from reading American Shield. I know that it wasn't a done deal that you were going to do that, and it took a lot to decide to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I always been kind of a reserved type of person. If it doesn't pertain to me, I would just let it slide or keep moving on or keep it quiet. But I think given the magnitude of what happened on January 6th, first of all, there were hardly any other officers speaking about it. And I felt compelled that, it cannot be just Harry Dunn saying those things out loud. It cannot be.
He went first on his own, right? The initial hearing. Okay.
Yeah. And I thought that maybe people were not paying attention to him because he doesn't have the physical injuries. I do have the physical injury. I was his supervisor, one of his supervisor. I am a military veteran. I'm a former military sergeant. I'm a combat vet. I'm management at the Capitol Police. I'm a sergeant at the Capitol Police. Maybe they will hear me out. Maybe they will pay more attention to what the things that I had been said, because these people, some of them were already downplaying what happened, especially Kerry McCarthy. And these are the same people that I risked my life for, and yet they know what this guy is capable of. And this happened when he had the guardrails around him, and now he doesn't have those guardrails around him.
Mm-hmm.
All he's surrounding himself with are yes men, yes ma'am. What is going to happen, if he gets back in power? I don't know. But the thing that bothers me is that people that claim to be conservative, people who don't want the government to do certain things, allow this person to do all these things while in government because he literally set up incited a mob to attack his own branch of government.
Mm-hmm.
He was still in power when this happened. This is the worst attack in our democracy, in our governance, a system of governance, created and incited and orchestrated by him and his allies. And yet they don't want to hold him accountable. They're always like, look over there. What about them? What about this? What about so and so? Look at the laptop over there, but don't look at my kids. God forbid, the $2 billion from Saudi Arabia. Let's not investigate those things, or the patents awarded from China to his daughter. God forbid that. But that's a separate thing.
But it kind of does. It fits into this idea that either we have you, as you mentioned, earlier in our conversation, you can't say that you're the party for personal accountability and the rule of law, and no one is above the law, and then say except for us. That doesn't work.
And that's the thing. Like I said, when they say that publicly on rallies and on TV, yes, we support the police. We're the party of law and order. Only when it applies to that group that we don't like, or this group, but not to our own group supporters. God forbid. If you do it, then you're partisan. Like they could look at my record and they won't find anything bad about me, but yet they accuse me of things. And this is an attack that was happened and coordinated by native-born Americans. I'm an immigrant. I was not even born in this country, but yet here I am defending the country, both overseas and here on January 6th. But I'm the bad guy. Why? I done more for this country than most of them ever even dream about. And that's
yes. I mean, some people pretended to have foot problems, so they didn't have to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
I think you know who I mean. So the thing about this book, we've been talking mostly about just one period of your life, a very important period of your life. But I think what makes American Shield such a special book is it's a great book for young people. It's a great book for new Americans. It's a great book for people who've been in this country for a long time, even for generations, because I love the story you tell about coming to America, about, overcoming the, language barrier and the, the prejudice that you face, and also encountering, making the choices that you had to make, because the American dream doesn't just present itself when you hit the shores. You found out. What'd you say?
You have to work for it and make the right choices.
And you're like, there's this one part in the book, and I want to start some questions at the beginning, but like there's this one part of in the book when you're like your first year of college, maybe it's the second year of college, and you're like, not only do you like have several jobs, and you're helping out your parents at work, and your mother has been in this terrible accident, which is in part your father's fault, and has to have, has serious burns, and you're helping her recuperate, and you're supposed to be in college, and you're in the reserves, and I could go on and on and on. And I think that a normal human would have had a breaking point. And I think that I also now see why you showed up at work now the next day, because you are used to saying, I'm going to be strong and I'm not going to quit. And let me just tie this to this other thing. Like if you faced a situation where, let's say your test score for in the reserves, and got you the test score the first time you did it would have only given you a couple opportunities, and you said, can I take it again? And then and I just love that about your story. I guess I'm kind of talking too much, but I want to guess I also back up and ask you, what are you hoping young readers or people who only know you for January 6th get out of this book and out of your story?
One thing that I could tell people is my struggles, my challenges that I overcome, the adversities, is all shown not to the whole book is not about January 6th. It's about sacrifices and making choices that to become a better person. I think throughout the book, I know there's a lot of things that I left out because otherwise it would be a 600 pages book, and we don't want to.
I'd read
We
that.
don't want to. We don't want to bore you guys too much with it. But there was a lot of instances where I fail. Strap I strap up my laces on my boots on my shoes and try again. Different angle, different way, different approach. Um, did I thought about giving up? Yes, I did. Had it not been because of my grandfather talk that I had with him, I probably would not even be here in the United States at all. Um,
That's your Filo,
Fillo,
right?
Fillo.
Fio.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Spanish is a little.
Fio. I should have known that because it was an A, not an L. Yeah.
But uh, the book is about extremely about overcoming a lot of things, obstacles, challenges. You mentioned some of them, but I also was dealing with a girlfriend that needed my time, family wise. I was dealing. There's a lot of layers along. We had the immigrant layer, the assimilation to this country, um, financial disparity, family relationships that were not great. And people, I was trying to get to know my dad and living with him. Um, the lack of financial means that play a role. But here I am making strives trying to sell my mom's patelitos, door to door, her food. Then I became.
By the way, I looked that up and they look delicious. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Then I began to do car washing. Then became a mechanic. Then a tire tech. Then I'm like, let me continue my education with college, high school. Graduated from that, and then 9/11 happened. Then I had to find another trade because I wanted to help, even though I was in the military. They didn't pick me to go to Ground Zero, and I wanted to. Then I became a security guard, and at one point where I was working, they said, "Well, they're the supervisor that we're talking about making Chase Manhattan Bank. That we're talking about making us the security guard full police officers." And then, okay, maybe I'll wait a couple of months. When is that? Well, in a couple of months. Well, those couple of months turned out to be 8 months, and nothing happened. And I said to myself at that time, I was talking to a guy from Turkey that we used to be my coworker, and he said, "Well, I told him, you know what? If I'm going to be risking my life, might as well just get the benefits out of it and become a police officer." So when they made the decision that it was not going to be make that transition from security guard to policing officer, then I'm like, I'm out. And I went to apply for several police departments throughout the East Coast, New York State, in Long Island. They had three different ones: Norfolk, Suffolk, and New York City. Then Baltimore, Montgomery County, in Maryland as well, Alexandria, in Richmond, Virginia. So, and also Florida, somewhere in Florida, I think Broward County. So all these things I'm trying to do, trying to better myself, and
Also not get stuck, right?
yeah,
I get this sense like I know you have this expression like you wanted, you at one point said to Natalie, your girlfriend in high school's mom, this something helped you open a door.
yeah,
Maybe it was outward bound, and she said, no, you open your own doors, and that's so true. You could have sat still at any time, and you didn't want to get stuck,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I even contemplated becoming a coal miner.
what?
Once I came back from Iraq, but I'm like, wait a minute, that means on the ground and dealing with dust and my asthma.
And you have asthma,
Yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
that's what kind of like made me reconsider. But I did fill out the application. I remember, and then like, no, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. That would have
Can
been
I can I back up to something that I can't get out of my mind? It makes me so angry. When you first signed up for the Army Reserves and the recruiter promised you a $10,000 signing bonus and he didn't put it in the contract and he just walked away from it.
yeah. That was devastating.
That's so cruel. That's like you were like 21 or something, right?
Yeah, and that was to me that was devastating to find out. I'm like, no, the paper is right there. He put it there, and I trusted him. He did that. But by the time I came back to inquire about it, it was too late. He got a transfer, and it's not like today that we could find and locate people right away.
Right.
I still had those documents that that says X amount of years, but I don't have the document that I needed to award me what I was promised to me, and that was another reason why I joined. Kind of like tried to do those things that I did and continue. Like I even tried to requested to be transferred to active duty at one point, and I'm like, but then I reconsider if I leave, then my mom is going to be by herself, and all these things that I'm doing on the side, I probably won't be able to do it. So I opted not to go to active duty as well. But not having that amount of cash or benefit.
That was supposed to get you thugh college, right? That was supposed to help pay your
Part of it. I mean,
part of it.
at the end of my college years, it took me longer than what it needs to, but I ended up graduating with I think it was $60,000 or
In debt,
40,000
yeah.
in debt. So it would have helped me a little bit. Just like when Capitol Police a few years ago, they had an incentive to you stay on for 5 years, and they got 10 years but then sequestration in 2012 happened, and they cut off. Literally, I'm with my application to submit it, and oh no, we just cut that program. I'm like, and then by the time they brought it back, I only had one payment left. So there you go. So I'm like, okay, I guess it was not meant to. But I was able to overcome those things. I graduated from college. I pay off my debts, and I didn't give up. And like you said, there are many obstacles that it could probably have slowed me down. How did I stay in New York? I think I would have been ending up with one of the few options that most Dominicans try to fill the role, which is a barber, a bodega store owner, or a cab driver, or a factory worker. I mean, those are the options that I had that I was facing at that time. But
and those are solid jobs.
Yeah,
but you wanted more. Right.
I'm not knocking it down. I'm just saying that I felt like I could have done a lot more. I knew that coming back from the war as a vet, those doors would have opened. And like you said, the Natalie's mom, she like, no, they didn't open doors for you. You did, because what you did. And I took that at heart, because then I'm like, okay, I guess I'm on her good side now, but even if it's just for a day. But
But you mentioned earlier, it's interesting as you talk about what I'd like that you put in your book is navigating different personal relationships and these moments where, I think we all have this when we're young people, where you have to make choices. And when you got this wonderful job in DC with the Capitol Police, and I think it was Natalie who didn't want you to go because she had her family business, having to make a choice. And if you had stayed, you would have been resentful. And if she had followed you, she would have been resentful, right? So sometimes these relationships have to, I guess, change or fall apart. But that must have been very hard for you at that time.
It was. I mean, she was one of the few people that I care or had on my side at that time. But I also understood, it was easy for me to pack up and go because I'd done that a lot. As a kid, I was bouncing around from my mom's parents to my dad's parents and back and forth, depending on the season, to plant and grow and cultivate.
This was back
It
in
does
when
make
you were a child in the DR. Yeah.
Yes. So throughout my life, it's always has been easy for me. I mean, not always was I content about it, but it happened. So it's kind of like used to, what, time to go. It's not good for me right now, or they need me better. I could be more useful somewhere else, and that's what I did. In terms of Natalie in the book in the American Shield, I asked her, I'm like, come on, let's go. I mean, we're young, we'll make it. I have a job that line up. Most likely I'll do good in the academy, and all we got to do is just settle down there. And she wanted me to apply in New York. I already applied in New York and I failed it twice. So why am I going to keep try and do that there when this one's already I passed and is ready and available for me to just go just do it. And her brother at some point talked to me about trying again. I'm like, no, I'm already, this one's already accepted me, so I'm going to go. I think I had Miami Dade, Broward County as well lined up, and I told them no, I'm already here because they wanted me to establish residency for a month without having a job. I'm like, I cannot. How am I going to live off who? Where am I going to stay? If you want me to be there for a month and not even paying you for it, so.
But I think destiny was pulling you toward the Capitol, in part because of your past with that very nice Capitol police officer when you were on the school trip, but also where things landed. Before we wrap up, I want to talk a bit about what it's like to be a father to this wonderful son, Manny, given the complex relationship you've had with your own father. How is that? How have you learned to be a husband and a father in a different way than your own father was in your family?
My dad and myself, our relationship had not always been the greatest. I know that he had meant well most of the time. It just had come out differently, or shown different, or the outcome is different. I am thankful that he had brought me here to the United States. He gave me a better life. He gave me the opportunity for a better life. And at some point, we were good. After I came back from Iraq, I think our relationship has survived a lot of things. And I had taken those lessons learned from my own dealing with my dad to try to be different than him in terms of when to be there for my son, how to be there, be more kind of like reflective of how I feel. I encourage him to tell me whether I done something that upset him, or I tell him, okay, you need to behave, or this and that. So always try to be different than what he had, my dad, the way I was raised. And I get it that he was not a perfect father for me, but I also understand that he immigrated to the United States in seeking a better life, and because of that, I was able to arrive here. I tried to instill in my son some of my upbringings from both my grandparents and even my dad, because I know there are certain things that I don't want him to be exposed, or things that didn't work out too well for me. If I try not to spoil him, I do take him back home to the Dominican Republic or Colombia and tell him, this is where I grew up, or this is what I had to overcome. This is how I played. This is how we took a bath, or we didn't have a toilet. We had latrines.
What does he say? Are his eyes really big, and is he amazed, or what does he say to you when he has these
He
experiences.
does. I mean, I tell him like the first thing I do is give me your phone, and that obviously that's not good because they want to be connected with their friends and watch cartoon. Like you are in a different country, in a different culture. Detach yourself from that, and you're gonna be by the time you leave, you're gonna learn something. You're gonna be more appreciative of what you have home. And I do tell them like I didn't have a choice to eat breakfast, Cheerios or, I mean, in DR, Cheerios is all kinds of cereal. So that's kind of like the title of it. It's not like cornflakes or whatever other different types. It's just we call it one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So back then I didn't have a choice. I'm like, this is what you have: plantains, egg and cheese, or cassava. You don't have no what is it? Tater tots or brownie or mac and cheese or whatever breakfast you have here from McDonald's or any other places. And you just have to eat whatever was given to you because there was nothing else. I mean, right now he has a lot of choices, and I tell him, look, you're lucky. You're lucky because you have a choices. I didn't. You have a lot of things I never, I dream, I never had and dream about, like TV. You have a phone, you have a computer, you have all these things, all these uh, accessibility and opportunity that could probably get you to be better than I am or further than I gotten. You even speak English better than I ever could. So use that to your advantage. You don't take everything for granted because I had to learn the hard way. Just like I think one last year he was like, I'm thinking maybe when I grow up I want to be a police officer and join the military. I'm like, do you realize you have better choices than I did? So I try to not trying to discourage him from doing those things, but if I could influence his behavior a little bit and tell him, you know what, you could do a lot of other things that I didn't have the choices to, or you might be better at it. And just because I did it doesn't mean you have to do it. You already seen how I'm being treated. You already seen how all these struggles, all these fatigues that I had happened to me, both in the military and also as a police officer. So it comes with a great risk. So if you could avoid it, yes, do it. Do something else. But if you do end up doing those things, of course I'm going to support you 100%. I'll be there to guide you.
Well, I know he's proud of you because this on page 205 of the book, this really brought tears to my eyes when you were talking about this part of history, this piece of history that you are now part of the events of January 6th. And I think you may have asked him, so if they talk about this in school, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? And he said, when I read it, I'll tell them that was my dad.
The
Incredible.
it wasn't easy for me to accept that because I did another interview with another local channel here in DC, and that was the first time I mentioned those things, and it brought me to tears. I'm like, you know, he is proud of me. He's very proud of what I've done and what I accomplished. It's not easy doing those things. Just tomorrow and Friday, I had to be in court, regardless of um, my feelings, regardless of uh, having almost 3 years gone by since January 6th. I still got to deal with the ramification of January 6th. For some of the people
You're right. I kept saying the second anniversary. It's almost 3 years. Oh my gosh. You're
for
right.
some of these people, January 6th was just a couple of hours. For me, it has been ongoing. I more than 50 people assaulted me on January 6th, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes in conjunction with other people, as a group or individually. So for me, almost every day is a reminder of that day. On Friday, I had to be in court for the guy, one of the guy who assaulted me on my right hand. And that's almost 3 years ago. I could talk to you about these things right now, but in the immediate aftermath, I couldn't. I was
Right.
a wreck, very emotional. I was still had to have processed all these things. All I knew was that a whole bunch of people assaulted me, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them to be held responsible. Then the same people who I protected, they tell me, "Oh, nothing happened," and if it did happen, it was not as bad as you say it was. But they only,
Do you think?
but they only
Oh,
were
sorry.
able to say those things because the time that I gave them to run to their loved one, to their safe house, to be evacuated from the Capitol. And as I mentioned in my book, all these things happen to me, not to them. So when they say nothing happened to who?
Mm,
Nothing happened to who? They could have been killed, but
mm.
we stopped those people from coming and that's very unfortunate that they have sided with the very same people who were hunting them down room by room instead of supporting the police officers who, like me, who were injured, who were willing to give up their lives.
Despite that lack of gratitude from those people, the rest of us know that you matter. We know what happened, and we know that they do too.
And,
Um, as we as we close, I was touched by the very first line of your acknowledgments, and this is where you wrote, "First and foremost, I want to thank Dios for protecting me in my times of need." How does your spirituality help you get through this as we approach now the third year?
um, it's a very hard topic for me because I had overcome so many things, and sometimes I'm at us with I'm at odd with some of the things that I witnessed or seen. Um, there are times that I'm like, if there is a God, then why allow all these things? And but then I also see His work when, for example, Michael Fanone, he relieved me, and by the time that he relieved me, and as I speak in my book American Shield, by the time he relieved me, both my hands were have been injured. My foot has already been injured. I have been hit in the head, even though I had my helmet on. I had been hit, pepper spray, and all these things that were happening to me. And here comes Michael Fanone and relieve me, just so I could use the bathroom. And within 3 minutes, I went back to the bathroom and came back. Michael Fanone took my spot, and he got dragged
Mm,
out into the mob.
mm.
I do, to this day, feel guilty about that. I know there's nothing I could have done to prevent him from suffering all those things. Maybe if I would have stayed there for 1 more second or 2 more seconds, 10 more seconds. And but then again, maybe if I did stay there, maybe I would have survived with my asthma, with my PTSD, with everything that happened to Michael Fanone, where he suffered 2 heart attacks, was taser multiple times.
Yep.
He got punched,
Yep.
he got kicked, he got threatened to be killed with his own gun. Maybe I would have survived all those things.
It's not your fault.
No, I know
And
that,
I know you
I
think
know that, but
you think
the guilt,
about, but the fate, the
the
guilt.
guilt is
Oh,
still there. No matter what I do, I had talked to Michael about it, and he grabbed me by my head and put in Sergeant Gonell, shut the fuck up. I forgive you already. You know how he,
I can totally hear him
you
saying
know
that.
how blunt he is about his
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mincing any words.
I'm going to say it too. Shut the fuck up, Gonell. Okay?
So I
You have the grace of Dios with you, and we are all, I am personally and the rest of us grateful that you acted as a shield. And I only hope that what comes to us in the future prevents this from happening again. But you put your body between the future of democracy and the violent anarchy that could have followed. And thank you for giving that to us and for spending this time with me today.
Well, thank you. And I hope people do, your listeners do reach out and listen to what is said in the book. It's a great book. It's not just about January 6th, about sacrificing, being selfless, and whether you see me as a hero or as a villain, I still did my job. I kept my oath, and I'm very humble about it. I don't think I need the praises to whatever it is. I think history will take care of it, and I'm very grateful, and my conscience is clear that I did what I was supposed to. I did my job, and I hope that people do realize that at the end of the day. And if you do buy the book is in Spanish as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. What's the title in Spanish?
Escudo Americano, el sargento inmigrante que defendió la democracia.
¿Cómo se dice shield en español?
Escudo. Escudo.
Escudo.
Mm-hmm. So it's in Spanish as well. Escudo Americano, el sargento que defendió la democracia, and American Shield, the sergeant immigrant who defended America. I did all those things not because I wanted accolades, awards, or anything to gain. I just simply did my job, what was required of me. And if you think there's any other things behind that, then you are wrong. But if you do take a chance and read the book, please review it. Then you understand where I'm coming from and how and why I'm so spoken about January 6th in the aftermath. I continue to provide statement in conjunction with the legal system to hold those people accountable for what they did to me. And I hope you enjoy the book as well. Thank you for having me.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
That was an incredible conversation speaking with Sergeant Aquillino Gonell. Seeing him, which is something I know that you don't do, but I know you can hear his voice, and I see still his sense of incredulity, his sense of betrayal that there were on January 6th, and even to this day, including the new Republican Speaker of the House, Johnson, that people who, instead of honoring and respecting what he did, are telling lies and trying to cover up the violent insurrection. People who he protected, he and his colleagues protected, they suffered physically. Some even died. Some committed suicide. They're still suffering mentally from what they did. And all of that is compounded by the fact that there are people lying and pretending that this was a peaceful protest at the Capitol and still supporting Donald Trump, who is a person who caused all of this to happen and is actually still now trying to get back into the Oval Office. I think this is a wonderful book. As Aquillino mentioned in our conversation, American Shield does tell, in part, this piece of his life on January 6th, but a lot of the book, the good part of this book, is a coming-of-age story. I found it so inspiring, and I was also especially pleased to see that Congressman Jamie Raskin wrote the foreword to it. There's so much praise from people that I know we all respect, including Nancy Pelosi and Jon Stewart and Adam Schiff, and of course Michael Fanone, his friend. I love this, what Jon Stewart said, and I think I'll close this part of the podcast with this, which is Jon Stewart said, whenever duty calls, Sergeant Gonell answers. His story of service and resilience is uplifting and inspiring. And he's my height, which I also admire. So thank you so much for listening today and always to Booked Up. I will be back next week with another show as we continue to explore the writing process and the nonfiction world together. Please keep letting me know what you think. Send me an email at bookedup@politicon.com, and you can also write on paper to Booked Up at P.O. Box 147, Northampton, Massachusetts 01061. To keep up with the show and our featured authors, follow Booked Up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And please give Booked Up a 5-star review. It really will help other people find the podcast.